Morning, everyone. Josh's Severe Weather. Happy Wednesday to you. I just want to pause real quick to remember those who lost their lives and family members in 9/11. And obviously, we've got to talk about weather today. Hurricane Francine strengthened last night as expected. It is now taking aim at the Louisiana region, Mississippi, and Alabama as well here over the next 24 hours. I'm going to talk about what to expect, what has changed, what could still change, and what you should be preparing for. Obviously, if you're in Louisiana, you need to be fully prepared now. This storm is starting to bear down on you. It'll be making landfall later this afternoon, and conditions will continue to go downhill from here. I know it's not super bad just yet, although it will start to get windier at the coast, and that storm surge will be climbing as the day wears on. We are seeing strengthening as of this video here, 7 o'clock Central. The storm is a high-end Category 1. It still is probably going to strengthen a little bit more here as we head towards the rest of the morning into the early afternoon. Then we'll reach a point where wind shear should kick in and start to stop that strengthening period. But there's a chance that that strengthening period may find a way to continue right up until it makes landfall. These storms can be resilient as they grow, and despite wind shear, sometimes that stronger wind flow aloft can lead to what can be enhancement and ventilation of the storm, despite the fact that it will be more tilted and kind of disorganized looking due to the fact that the storm center will be a little bit displaced from what's going on above the ground. Either way, this is a strengthening storm. It's not going to be a Katrina or an Ida or a Laura, but it will be a pretty intense system as it moves in. We are expecting hurricane conditions to affect the New Orleans area. There's a hurricane watch in effect there. I'm going to break down all those watches and warnings. What maybe isn't being talked about is what I believe will be an increasing threat for some quick tornadoes, some of which could get up to EF2. As this storm makes landfall tonight across far eastern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and southwest Alabama. By the way, tomorrow, as this system is weakening and it's getting enhanced by the jet stream, we could have more tornadoes across parts of Alabama and eastern Mississippi. In places like Birmingham and Tuscaloosa, we may have a mini tornado outbreak. So I'll talk about that in this video. Here's the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center. Still expecting a bit more strengthening up to about 100 miles per hour. I think the good news is that it is behaving the way I think we all expected. The strengthening took a little bit longer than a lot of us expected to happen yesterday, but certainly it's going on right now. And the storm system is moving out of the area, the highest ocean heat content, but still over very warm water. So there will be a bit of a lag as it moves into cooler water that slows down that strengthening period. Eventually, as it moves onshore, it will be weakening. We are going to see the storm tomorrow morning moving by to the northwest of New Orleans, east of Baton Rouge, and heading into Mississippi, and it will weaken pretty quickly and is expected to slow down. It's actually moving faster this morning at 12 miles per hour, which is good news, meaning that the rainfall totals will be a little bit less than a slower moving system, like a barrel, obviously. But either way, it is going to produce some very heavy rain and probably some flooding across these low-lying areas of southeast Louisiana and maybe southern Mississippi. By this time tomorrow, we'll have a lowering chance of this still being a tropical storm, and then it will be a remnant low fizzling by the time it gets to near the Memphis area. Models have continued to shift to the right overall. You can see where they were a few days ago, centering on southwest Louisiana. Yesterday, centered near the Atchafalaya, Vermilion Bay areas, south central Louisiana, and pretty good agreement this is going to hit southeast Louisiana, somewhere between Morgan City and Houma, and continue to track between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. Here is the official Hurricane Center forecast. In my opinion, I still think it needs to be shifted to the right a little bit more, but we have 90-mile-per-hour winds as of this morning, expected to reach 100-mile-per-hour sometime late this morning into the early afternoon. Then that intensity levels off, so this will not rapidly intensify as it moves onshore this afternoon and evening, and we'll be making landfall here in the hurricane warning area. Looks like very close to Morgan City. Possibly still as far east as Houma and as far west as New Iberia, although I'd be shocked if it came that far west. To be honest with you, I think it's more likely going to be on the right side of this. And then the system will weaken to a tropical storm overnight tonight as it moves somewhere across the Florida parishes of Louisiana. Now, models continue to be on the right side of the Hurricane Center forecast, bringing the storm center very close to the west side of the New Orleans area and into the North Shore region. In fact, I'll show those to you, but in my opinion, this storm track will take the system through Terrebonne, Lafourche, St. Charles, and eventually eastern Tangipahoa and St. Tammany parishes. It's possible it could still make its way into St. Charles and Jefferson Parish. It's Unlikely. It's going to be moving right over to the west of Baton Rouge. So what this does is it puts the strongest winds on the northeastern side of the storm, and that includes Houma and Thibodaux. That includes Luling and Destrehan and Kenner and the west side of the New Orleans area, and also includes both Lake Maurepas and Lake Pontchartrain. And we could even see hurricane conditions extending into places like Ponchatoula and Bedeco, Mandeville, Madisonville, Covington, Goodby, Folsom, Louisiana, according to what I expect will happen. By the time it moves up into Washington Parish, I think it will be below the hurricane intensity. What this also means is it increases your risk of stronger wind across the remainder of the east-facing coast of Louisiana, so St. Bernard and Plaquemines Parish, as well as all of coastal Mississippi and coastal Alabama. And we could even see some strong winds sneaking up into the Pensacola area as well, although the worst will be across Mississippi and parts of southwestern Alabama. Here is the official Hurricane Center forecast and warning map, and you'll see a hurricane warning in effect for all of south central and interior southeast Louisiana up to Baton Rouge, hurricane watch for greater New Orleans, as well as a tropical storm warning. Now, I personally feel like this needs to be upgraded to a hurricane warning. I don't think anybody's doing New Orleans any favors by keeping it a watch. Watch means possible, warning means imminent. I'll show you the models in a minute, but I think you'll see that because this storm has grown and because it's going on the right side of this track, that New Orleans very much is at risk for hurricane conditions. And when I say New Orleans, please don't feel left out if you're in Kenner, if you're in St. Charles, Lower Jefferson Parish, Lafourche Parish. You guys are also in that area. I know you're not right in New Orleans. You're in the kind of the swamp, to be honest, the river parishes, but you guys are very much at risk at seeing hurricane conditions tonight, especially in the evening hours. We do have a tropical storm warning that extends into southwest Mississippi, including Macomb, Natchez, even into parts of central Louisiana, places like Krotz Springs and Simmsport, and all the way back to Lake Charles. If you're in Lake Charles, you're on the good side of this storm, but you will see some gusty winds out of the north and west as we have much higher pressure off to your north, a lot cooler, drier air on the west side of this system that will actually increase that pressure gradient. Mobile, Baldwin County, all of southern Mississippi under a tropical storm warning, and you guys do need to be prepared for power outages, some strong winds, and some storm surge. And we have a tropical storm watch that goes up to places like Hattiesburg, Laurel, Mississippi, and just to the south of Jackson. In my opinion, I think we could see tropical storm winds getting up into this area, including Jackson and areas just south and east of you across central Mississippi as well. But this should die off pretty quickly by tomorrow night into Friday morning as it nears the Memphis area. One thing you'll see is that the hurricane force wind swath is growing. Over the last few hours, the storm is taking on a larger shape. So this does increase that wind field. The tropical storm force wind field is also growing. Eventually, I think the hurricane force wind field ends up in here, and the tropical storm force wind field kind of ends up sort of like this. Again, really tough to say at this point because any deviation left and right on final approach can change that. But what you should be preparing for are the winds to start picking up here late in the morning on the coast, and then in the afternoon across the rest of southeast Louisiana, and then in the early evening north and east of Baton Rouge, across the Florida parishes, across the coastal portions of Mississippi and Alabama, and later tonight across the rest of interior Mississippi. This storm is going to be moving pretty quickly in your direction. So you do need to be quickly preparing here for this storm. Storm surge forecasts have not changed too much. They have been lowered west of where the storm is going to come in. So west of Vermilion Bay over through the Rockefeller and Lacassine refuges over to Cameron, down to 3 to 5 feet. That is the area that really got hit hard with Hurricane Laura and Hurricane Delta. Those forecasts have come down some, but still, if you're near the coast, 3 to 5 feet will inundate you on the first floor. 1 to 3 feet back through the Galveston Bay area, Lake Charles, the mouth of the Sabine River, all the way down to Freeport. And then the highest amounts of storm surge will be near and east of the center, all the way over to Port Fourchon, 5 to 10 feet of storm surge. That includes all of coastal St. Mary Parish. That includes all of Iberia Coastal Parish, Marsh Island, all of coastal Terrebonne Parish, and all the way over to Lafourche Parish, 4 to 7 feet across coastal Jefferson Parish and the southern facing coast of the Plaquemines Parish region. Barataria Bay will see storm surge coming up into the swampland. 2 to 4 feet here on the east facing coast between the Wrigley's and the mouth of the Mississippi. But Lake Pontchartrain, that storm surge forecast has increased to 4 to 6 feet. This is going to put the lakeshore of New Orleans, especially the part of Jefferson and St. Charles Parish on the lake, at risk of seeing some significant storm surge. So if you're on the lakeshore, north of the airport, basically, is where I think you are going to see inundation. Lake Maurepas, 3 to 5 feet. East of the storm center, we are going to see storm surge hitting coastal Mississippi, 4 to 6 feet, including the Stennis Space Center area, including Biloxi, Gulfport, Waveland, and Pass Christian. Josh Morgerman lives down there. He better be ready for that. I know he's excited about storms like this. East Ocean Springs, Pascagoula, 3 to 5 feet. All of the Alabama coast, 2 to 4 feet, including Mobile Bay. We could see coastal flooding in parts of Mobile. And then that extends even into northwest Florida, 1 to 2 feet, all the way to the Santa Rosa, Okaloosa County line. Storm surge definitely, even though it's a Category 1 going to 2, is something that can cause quite a bit of damage. So can inland flooding, and that is also a concern. New Orleans floods during a summer thunderstorm. This is going to be a bad event for you in New Orleans, but it is going to be a quickly evolving and quickly easing event. This system's going to be out of here tomorrow, so you're going to see potential flash flooding, but it won't be lasting for a long, long time like Katrina. You'll see that moderate risk goes all the way up to Jackson, Mississippi. Slight risk all the way up into northeast Arkansas, western Tennessee, much of Alabama, even southwest Georgia and western Florida, the Panhandle, and then up into the Quad State area, all the way to Cape Girardeau and Cairo, Illinois, has a risk of flooding. There will be very little rain east of this system once we get high pressure to take over here. So those of you that really need the rain in this area, in the Appalachians, are not going to see it. But those of you in the upslope areas, places like Brevard, Pisgah Forest, Pickens County, South Carolina, Northeast Georgia, all have a risk of seeing some flash flooding out of this. Tornadoes are going to be a greater concern as this storm is getting close to landfall later this afternoon over all of Southeast Louisiana. But I particularly am concerned about eastern St. Bernard Parish, eastern St. Tammany, all of southern Mississippi here, at least the coastal parish or counties, all of southern Alabama here towards this evening, and western Florida during the night tonight. Tomorrow, we haven't talked about this a lot, but there is some concern that even though the storm is weakening significantly, because of the upper level dynamics, remember that wind shear that is getting increased by a strong jet moving in from the west. That's also going to add some energy and some wind field here. So we may be dealing with some tornadoes tomorrow afternoon along the I-65 corridor, even I-85 all the way to Auburn and Opelika, Talladega, Birmingham, Hoover, Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Chilton is in the risk here, Greenville, Montgomery, and much of western parts of Florida, and even southwest Georgia, near the area, the Fort Benning area of Columbus. Actually, I don't think it's Fort Benning anymore. I don't remember the name. All the way over to Tallahassee, we do have that risk for tornadoes. So real quick here, let's run through the satellite. This is the water vapor image. And I'm going to draw over this. The center of the storm is here. It's accelerating northeast in this direction. We've got a shortwave trough in here and a lot of dry air. And that dry air was the reason the system struggled to strengthen yesterday, but it's overcome that now. And you can see the outflow has grown as a result. But very fast wind flow aloft out of the southwest, bringing all this high cirrus cloud from Texas into the Carolinas. So it is going to reach that region of high wind shear pretty soon here, and as a result, that strengthening should stop. As it moves inland, it should be weakening pretty significantly. As we take a look here at the true color from Tropical Tidbits, you can see the size of the storm has grown. Yes, it doesn't have a cleared out eye. There's cirrus covering the eye, but you can see it's trying to poke out here in the last image. But definitely the system was smaller yesterday, and today you can see that it's grown quite a bit here. The wind field is increasing as well. So definitely a healthy storm, even though it's in the face of wind shear. One that is growing, and that means more folks are going to be impacted by those winds as that wind field continues to grow. In fact, because it's getting hit with southwesterly wind shear, and that will increase as this storm moves inland, we are going to see this wind field here continue to grow. And that's why I'm more concerned about New Orleans not just being in a hurricane warning, or not being in a hurricane warning, but only being in a hurricane watch, because this wind field is going to grow, and any deviation to the right is going to cause some larger areas of stronger winds and more power outages. If you go from 60 to 80 miles per hour, that makes a pretty big difference for what power lines and trees can withstand. So that's a concern of mine. I would not be driving over the causeway at all in those kind of wind gusts, just very dangerous. As you see on the radar here, the eye of the storm has grown significantly. The eye wall is very healthy on this side of the storm here, the side that's going to hit Louisiana. There is some dry air that is trying to get into the southwestern part of the eye wall, and as a result, this is not going to rapidly intensify, but it will probably still strengthen some. It's a resilient storm. It's in a very warm water, and despite this wind shear, it is fighting it off pretty well here this morning. I think when we get to tonight, it's going to struggle with that wind shear, and obviously we're going to lose the very warm waters of the Gulf as they do get cooler near the coastline due to all the rain that we had last week. So that rain was not fun, but it is helping us out a little bit and keeping the waters a little bit cooler right near the coastal shelf. Hurricane hunters in the storm, seeing falling pressure, 975, 976, which is a strong Category 1, almost Category 2 hurricane, but at latest pass, 972 millibars. So the pressure is dropping slowly, about a couple of millibars per hour, but may drop into the 960s, which would be a Category 2 storm. We can get caught up in the category strength all we want, but I think the one thing you guys need to notice is that the wind field is growing here. Hurricane hunters picking up on hurricane force winds now well to the east of the center at flight level. Now on the ground, they're not going to be quite that strong, but regardless, this whole area is exposed with oil platforms and oil structures all getting these hurricane force winds. So this is going to disrupt the oil and gas industry with all the rigs and platforms that are out here. Even though the winds onshore the winds should weaken as the storm comes onshore, it's going to take time for that to happen. Hurricane hunters are flying through. This is cyclonicwx.com. You can see pressure down about 973. So this is a borderline Category 2 storm. I do think we'll see some strengthening still this morning. You can see the radar showing a lot more wind on the right side than the left, which is great for Texas. But you can see a much healthier core as well, despite that wind shear out of the south and west. All of our model guidance from this morning shows the storm going to the east of Baton Rouge now and to the west of New Orleans. So right through the river parishes, right to the west of Houma, across Assumption Parish. That eye will go over you in Assumption Parish. You may have a break after the heaviest of wind where the eye actually goes over you and it's relatively calm before you get the far backside of this system. There's still a chance it could shift far enough to the right to move over St. James and St. Charles parishes and possibly into St. Tammany, but more than likely we're going to see this coming through between Morgan City and Houma, and then going up into the middle of the river parishes, and then going up through Tangipahoa Parish, and eventually ending up in southwest Mississippi. Don't get caught up in this part of the forecast. This system's going to die when it gets here. I don't know why it's keeping the circulation going and pushing it back out here, other than there's a huge high here that's eventually going to put up a wall here and keep this from progressing. But it'll be dead by the time we get to the weekend. Intensity forecast, we're close to Cat 2 now. More than half our models have it getting to Cat 2, nothing going to Cat 3, fortunately. And then quick weakening, and by the time we get to tomorrow morning, we're probably going to be in here, lowering to a tropical storm, and by tomorrow night, maybe even a tropical depression. So it's almost done strengthening, but it still has a chance of doing that. You can see here that the storm is encountering more wind shear. This is the wind flow way up over 30,000 feet. This is the strong southwesterly flow. And as we move this along, let's see if I can, my pen's in the way. Zoom is great when it works. That's all right. You can see here that the storm, this low down here, was in an area of very low wind flow aloft. So in a favorable spot other than the dry air on the western side that kept it from strengthening. Now the wind shear's picking up, but it's lost the dry air, so it's got a window to strengthen a little bit more. As this moves on shore at about 6 o'clock tonight, that wind shear goes up significantly, and by tomorrow it should kill off most of the wind from this system. But I do want to point this out here. Tomorrow afternoon, there's a very strong jet out of the southwest. Even though the low is in here, there's going to be an environment of more unstable air here. There's going to be some sun popping through, and with this kind of wind flow, we definitely need to be concerned about the threat for some tornadoes in the warm sector of this storm. And I'm going to show you the predicted radar so you can kind of see that here. I need to move along, but here's the HWRF. We may get into the high 960s. I don't think the low 960s, but Category 2. Storm making landfall very close to Houma here around 5 or 6 o'clock tonight. Then this model takes the low pressure right over Jefferson Parish, right over Metairie, or the west side of Metairie, the east side of Kenner, pretty much right over the airport. Strongest winds on the eastern side, which means New Orleans could be dealing with some of these strongest wind gusts here. between about 6 o'clock and 8 or 9 o'clock tonight. Then the storm leaves pretty quickly and goes into Mississippi, and we lose a lot of the strong winds that we're going to be seeing in Louisiana. One other tropical model showing a similar approach. This one's a little farther west. It has the low going over places like Laplace and Reserve, and then coming up through Madisonville and eventually up into the Franklinton area here overnight tonight. Winds will diminish quickly tomorrow as the system tracks into central Mississippi, and the pressure will weaken to about 1,000 millibars tomorrow night as it lands somewhere close to the Memphis area or across eastern Arkansas by Friday morning. You can see, though, by Friday afternoon, not much of a system left over. Predicted wind gusts here. These are how strong the winds could potentially get. Probably the high end here, worst case scenario. Wind gusts are over 100 miles per hour over those oil platforms this morning and early afternoon. As the storm moves inland, we still have a potential to see wind gusts over 100, maybe to as high as 113 over coastal Terrebonne Parish. Inland, we'll start to see tropical storm force winds moving into New Orleans around 4 o'clock here, 3 to 4 o'clock. You've got this band that is moving inland into southeastern parts of Louisiana, including the New Orleans metro, the river parishes, Assumption Parish, maybe into Ascension Parish, Iberville Parish, St. Mary Parish, and both ends of St. Martin, the two that are separated by Iberia Parish, I believe it is. You can see the eyes still holding together here, still a strong eye wall, and the HAFS model shows the potential for a wind gust to 88 miles per hour in New Orleans, the city. So hurricane watch, I think, is not enough. I think we got to have a hurricane warning, even if it's only a couple of hours of hurricane force wind. These hurricane force winds may make it over the lake, over Lake Pontchartrain, also Lake Maurepas. And there's a chance here that we still could see hurricane force winds even sneaking up into far southwestern parts, or it's coastal Mississippi, but the far western part of coastal Mississippi, past Christian, Waveland, those areas here, maybe even Slidell here. That time frame is going to be around 9 or 10 o'clock tonight. Then the system weakens significantly. We'll see the storm leaving. Still some gusty winds on the backside, bringing storm surge into the east side of New Orleans here overnight tonight. But this system will weaken. There may still be enough of a core for some stronger wind. And you can see here, maybe thunderstorms produce wind gusts over 60 miles per hour in parts of central and eastern Mississippi, around Mississippi State, also getting close to Tuscaloosa around the University of Alabama tomorrow around lunchtime. These winds, I think, are being over forecast, but it could still be a pretty windy day and evening tomorrow across Tennessee, northern Alabama, far northern Mississippi, maybe even northeastern Arkansas. And we could see sporadic power outages across this region before things start to settle down. All right, here's a look at the NAM model. These show you the strongest wind gusts. Again, tough to see on here, but 78 mile per hour wind gust at MSY, 71 in Houma and Thibodaux, 90 plus on the coast here, 73 in New Iberia, 63 in Lafayette, 68 miles per hour at Baton Rouge. So we're going to be close to hurricane force over a large area, but these will be instantaneous wind gusts. The HER model shows these winds picking up here this afternoon. This is 2 o'clock central, starting to hit the coast, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Now we get hurricane force winds at the coast. 5 o'clock, they're spreading inland. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, approaching New Orleans from the south. Grand Isle, 90 mile an hour wind gusts, potentially at 7 tonight. 8 o'clock is when the hurricane force winds are expected to slam the New Orleans area, especially the western and southwest side. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, they're on the north shore. 11 o'clock, and then right around midnight central, we'll see the strongest wind gusts moving into Mississippi as well. Here's a look at the NAM model, and you can see the timing is about the same. This is 9 o'clock central, moving into Mississippi, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, maybe hurricane force wind gusts in Gulfport, close to Biloxi as well, Keesler Air Force Base. Midnight, moving up towards Hattiesburg and Macomb, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Eventually the storm becomes a tropical storm, so these winds will come down, but they're still strong enough to cause power outages across this area. Even Mobile to Pensacola, we could see 50-plus mile-per-hour wind gusts. Moving along here, rainfall. We are going to see significant amounts. This is the blend of all the models, 6 to 10 inches of rain. New Orleans has the potential to see 8 to 10. That can cause widespread flooding. I would not be thinking about traveling tonight or tomorrow morning until these waters recede. On the North Shore, 5 to 8 inches of rain. Houma, Thibodaux, Morgan City, 6 to 10. Baton Rouge, depending on where this ends up going, if it goes over you in Baton Rouge, you're going to see a lot more than 2 inches. But right now, the totals are higher in Livingston and Eastern Ascension Parish and southern parts of Tangipahoa Parish. Definitely a lot of rain for southern Mississippi. We could see over 8 inches, depending on how this plays out. We could see significant rain inland in places like Oxford, Mississippi, Columbus, maybe over 5 inches of rain. Even Memphis could see about 3. And if you're in western and southern Alabama and western Florida, potentially several inches of rain as well. Tornado threat increases here as we get to the end of the afternoon, 3 or 4 o'clock. It's pretty high over far southeast Louisiana, especially New Orleans on south and east. But coastal Mississippi, I think you've got a tornado outbreak potential here this evening. Same goes for southeastern St. Tammany, eastern St. Bernard, and Plaquemines Parish. Overnight, coastal Alabama and even parts of western Florida, I am concerned about some tornadoes. They could be brief, but they could be intense. Nighttime tornadoes during hurricane landfalls can be surprises. Please be aware of that, and please be monitoring your weather radios tonight and early tomorrow. And then we see that chance for tornadoes climbing tomorrow across parts of Alabama and maybe far southwestern Georgia. Friday, the chances come down. These values are not super high, but we still have to be on the lookout for that. All right, we're going long here, but this is an important video. A lot of folks are in the track of this storm. You can see radar showing this landfall here about 5, 6 o'clock tonight. The worst for New Orleans between 7 and 9, and then spreading up into Mississippi as we get into the later evening hours. You will see isolated tornadoes in here. You can kind of see these hook echoes, and then this system is going to very quickly exit, and we should see a relatively dry, quiet day for tomorrow, maybe a leftover shower during the evening hours. Looking at Alabama, Mississippi, western Florida here, you guys are in the warm sector. You're in the area where we could see some tornadoes starting later on this evening. And overnight tonight, definitely a threat for a few tornadoes in the Mobile Bay area. I'd be keeping an eye on this area and here. This will be later this evening into the overnight and then towards early tomorrow morning in here. Definitely a threat for some tornadoes. Take a look at this future forecast radar, though, for tomorrow in Alabama. You can see with the heating of the day here, we do have potentially what could be an outbreak here across Alabama in this area and here, including Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Montgomery, even all the way up to Florence, Muscle Shoals, and Huntsville later in the afternoon, I think, and possibly into the early evening hours. So that's it for Francine. I may do another video later today. Let's look at the rest of the tropics really quickly here. Nothing else imminent. Several waves coming off of Africa that are struggling, and you can see those here, some heavy rain in the Eastern Caribbean, but nothing that's in a rush to develop. This is the first invest, and it's struggling, but it is still holding on. I think it's going to fade before it hits the islands, but we need to watch it in the Caribbean later next week. Maybe it does something kind of like what we're seeing with Francine, where it finds a way of trying to develop closer to Mexico or into the Southwest Gulf, and that's a big maybe. It's really too soon to say. But most of our models are keeping it weak. There's some that try to intensify it later on. 93L is just moving past the Cape Verde Islands. This one has a much better chance of developing when it moves into the central Atlantic. It is probably going to recurve, but a decent chance it becomes a tropical storm towards the weekend, but not a threat to land. And then I did want to draw your attention to the southeast coast here. We may see low pressure forming east of the Carolinas here over the weekend, and it could be a wet weekend at the beach, but next week in particular, we could see a subtropical or tropical storm by Monday east of Myrtle Beach or near Wilmington, and this has the potential to bring some significant rain into the Carolinas, Virginia, maybe even West Virginia and western Maryland here for the first half of next week. This is a change because if you saw the models yesterday, we had this huge dome of high pressure blocking this whole area. Now it looks like that high is going to be able to retreat and allow moisture to move its way up into the mid-Atlantic region here early next week. So we're going to see more of that here in coming videos. We do have a developing tropical storm in the Western Pacific. It's moving away from Guam, but heading towards Okinawa and eventually towards China as a strengthening typhoon. And unfortunately, China could see a super typhoon or a very strong typhoon in the China Sea. Keep an eye on it in Taipei. Certainly watch it closely in Okinawa. But this is inching closer to Shanghai with each forecast, and that's something I'm concerned about. We're going to have some time to talk about it more, though, in future videos. I hope everybody stays safe down south today. I'm praying for you guys, and I am a Christian, and I truly believe in the power of prayer. I give all the honor and glory to God. And real quick, just wanted to talk about God. Ephesians 6:10 through 12, Paul tells the church of Ephesus to be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. And I haven't I've never had a house leveled by a hurricane, but I've been through some hurricanes. The struggle is really how people respond. I know a lot of us are lower income. We're planning to see we're praying for help. We're praying for financial assistance, for insurance to come through here, but it is a struggle every day. And I'm not slamming anybody in those industries, but you guys are you're doing the Lord's work, but it is a struggle for those that really need the help after these storms hit. And just know that I'm praying for you guys, that I truly believe if you put on the armor of God, you're going to come out of this stronger no matter what happens today. So just please know I'm praying for you guys. I want everyone to be safe, and I may try to do a video again here later today. God bless you all. Have a safe day.